the only two ways that you can scale without adding more time to your business. There are only two. I think a lot of people tend to overcomplicate this. This is not to say that either of these options are better or worse than the other. They both have pros and cons, like we've been through. Both of these will add time for a period to you. However, longer term, you're not adding more and more hours just to have more and more clients. Hey coach, Xenia Wood here, and this is the Swift Coaches Academy podcast, created for service-based business owners who are ambitious enough to break free from the forever hustle and create scalable businesses that truly make an impact while also giving us freedom. With more than a decade of experience, we're not here to waste your time on theory. Instead, just sharing what works and what doesn't to help you get clear as fuck on your next move and show you exactly how to implement the systems and strategies that you need to scale with confidence. Welcome. Today, before we dive in, little life update as per usual. I recently finished NLP certification in my master's, which is like a level 3 certification, which I've been doing for the last 3 years now. And I never thought that I would be doing mindset coaching. Now, this is something that's new that I've started actually offering, and it's not my core business. And it's just cool because I think I always love the strategy. I love the systems, the processes, the actual work that gets to happen with scaling a business, particularly coaching businesses. And there usually, or almost always, comes a point where the coach I'm working with, and myself included, gets to a point where they stop or they do less than they know they're capable of, or something gets in the way that is in between their ears rather than an actual physical roadblock, almost every single time. And whether you can maybe relate to this or this feels like something that, you may have gone through in the past, I think that what I've been doing with business coaching anyway, there is mindset work involved in it. It's just dressed up as business coaching, realistically. But if we can't get through those things mentally, then if you don't believe you're the kind of person or you have the capability to become the type of person who can have a 7-figure business, for example, then you won't do the actions to get to a 7-figure business because it doesn't inherently align with your belief systems about yourself. And so this is just a really cool thing that I'm doing on the side. It's not exclusive to coaches or anything like that, but it is a cool thing that I'm doing and integrating that with the business coaching, not just doing it inside our biz program, because it's not a huge element of specifically just the mindset stuff. It's definitely focusing on like the strategy and things like that too. And yet, of course, being a business coach or consulting or whatever will inherently mean that there is some mindset work. Even if you as a coach and whatever you're doing, the whole thing is if you can't get people to do what they need to do to get the result, and they themselves are holding themselves back, even though they have all the resources or the tools or the strategies in place, then you're effectively supporting them to shift their mindset to be able to execute on that thing. So that's my cool new thing, because I wasn't planning on doing this. And then I was just talking to a business coaching client and I was like, hey gal, I think this may be really supportive for you. And she said yes and jumped in and took the leap, even though it was scary anyway. And I'm super keen to see where that goes. So that's my little life update. But today's episode is on the only two ways that you can scale without adding more time to your business. There are only two, and we're going to go through the pros and cons of each of those today, because I think a lot of people tend to overcomplicate this, or perhaps they just do, which is what I did. They do what they see the person, like the mentors or other people who are, bigger and further along in their journey than they are in the industry, and they go, oh, well, that must be the way. Or the other thing that I see them do, and this probably comes down to the mindset piece as well, is that they do what they think they should or they have to do in order to scale, rather than choosing the thing that they actually really want to do, but maybe doesn't feel like it's the thing that they are capable of, or they don't know how, or they don't have the skills yet, or they don't feel good enough or confident enough to be able to get results doing it a different way. So I want to talk to this today because I recently had a conversation with one of our students in our scale program, which is our, so they have to be at 6 figures plus and looking to scale their coaching business. So scaling not meaning increasing your prices or working more hours or, simplifying your back end to get more time back, although those things are all great and things we do inside the Biz Academy program. The focus of actually scaling is to effectively be able to take on more and build and grow your business exponentially. So I don't want you to get caught in this trap. And I'm just going to go through this little story because I think it'll really help explain this predicament that this client was in and help you see perhaps which way that you might want to go in terms of scaling and make sure that you're doing it in the way that best serves you. So I was talking to this student inside our program, and he was talking to me about looking to scale. He said, oh, I'm going to have to hire people and coaches and do these things. And we sort of went down the rabbit hole of, what that would look like for him. And after listening to him speak about it and knowing him personally, I went, hey, are you sure this is the way that you want to do it? And he was like, well, what do you mean? Like, what is the other way? Like, you have to hire people to scale. And I said, well, not necessarily. And I think sometimes we live inside these boxes that we build ourselves that tell us the rules of the game that we're playing. And we choose that everything lives inside this box until we can see another box or another way. We're like, what do you mean? This is the way it's done. You stop at red lights. What do you mean you can go through a red light? Like, it sounds so silly when I say that. And you're like, Xenia, you stop at red lights. Yes, just FYI, I do stop at red lights. However, what if it's 2 a.m. and it's like a really quiet street and like perhaps you're the kind of person who goes, I've looked around, I've waited at the light, this light's not turning green, I know there's no camera there, maybe I'll just go. Some people would be like absolutely shocked by that, and some people are like, seems fair enough, and other people are like, no, that's not how it's done. I'm not saying that you have to go and drive through red lights. What I'm saying is that we see the world through our own lens, and until another way is presented to us that could be a new, different way, we don't almost even realize that that way exists, right? And of course, there's consequences with doing different things, different ways, or ways that maybe society or the law or whatever it is expects us to. However, you get to take the risks according to what you're willing to tolerate if those things come up, right? Like if I go through a red light at 2 a.m. and there's no one there, and then a cop pulls me over, I need to understand that there are going to be penalties to that. And there are also opportunities where potentially there aren't those penalties, but I'm still taking that risk. Yeah. Business is all about playing the risk game. Okay. So what are the two ways that you can scale specifically without adding more time? Because most people who are probably listening to this are not looking to have 80-hour work weeks, and they're actually looking to have a life, and they actually want time freedom, and they want potentially location freedom, and they also potentially want financial freedom. So if that's you, I'm going to talk through these two ways. We're going to go through pros and cons. First option is to hire people. Now, that's the option that this student that I was talking to was mentioning to me, and I'll go through the alternative option in a second, but let's go through the hiring people and the pros and cons of that. So the pros of hiring people is that once you've onboarded them, which does take a while and can be quite lengthy, but once you have onboarded them, you will get recurring time back like indefinitely if you still have them hired, right? Because you have handed over a percentage of your workload to that person, and now you have those hours back. Yeah. You will obviously need to set up systems, and those things can be great to do because you should have those in your business, even if you are solo. But it is really helpful to basically just go, here's 10, 20, 30 hours of work, go and do it for me. And of course, you pay in exchange for getting that time back. However, that can be really helpful because it's indefinitely taken off your pay, really. And the other thing that's great for it is it can help maintain a really high touch point service. So if you still want and believe that one-on-one or like really intimate coaching is the method that you really believe in and want people to experience and have from you, then instead of you doing that work, someone else doing that work one-on-one is still going to give them that high touch, one-to-one support and experience. And that scales because you can hire multiples of those people, right? It doesn't just have to be exchanging your time for someone else's time, but then you can duplicate or multiply that as well. Yeah. The reason most people choose this and the reason why this seems like the obvious choice is because it keeps your existing offer or program or system intact. You don't need to go and rebuild something from scratch. It's not a new offer, it's the same service. You're just getting someone else to do the delivery piece of that service. Yeah. So that's the pros of hiring people. The cons is that there's a fair bit of training involved, management, and leadership. Now, you may actually see this as a pro. However, most coaches I speak to end up going, well, but I love coaching. I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to manage people. I want to like be on the floor. I want to be, face to face with the clients. I want to be doing the thing that I got my qualifications in, right? I don't want to go now manage people and become like HR or like systems and back end operations, because technically, for the most part, if you're a coach, you got into this because you love coaching, not because you love looking at your finances. Yeah. The other thing is it's going to add overheads and additional ongoing costs. Yeah. So it is a potentially more costly option to choose this. However, it is, I would say, not the easier route, but the more obvious choice. It is what most people do. So a lot of people understand this, they recognize it. You're not having to transition people to something totally new that they're not already bought into. And it's what most of the industry still does in terms of one-to-one services in the health or wellness coaching space. Yeah. The other thing is it's still dependent on human time, just not your time. So you're still trading time for money. It's just not your time for money that you're exchanging. Yeah. So that's the pros and cons of hiring people. Option 2, you may have guessed this. What I call this is creating a leveraged offer. So this is where you're creating a hybrid or a group model or some sort of even like online component or even a handbook that's physically in person or meal plans or whatever it is, but some sort of content that you have created in advance that they then get to go and do either upfront or drip fed or over a period of time, that is not you doing the same work over and over and over again and repeating yourself quite often. Yeah. So group offers, hybrid offers, or some sort of like system that helps do some of the work with them, but without you being present. Okay. So this is obviously that second method of how you can scale without adding more time. Now, I will caveat that both of these will add time for a period to you. However, longer term, you're not adding more and more hours just to have more and more clients. So the pros of creating a leveraged offer. First one is it's true time leverage. So you're no longer trading time for money, you're trading value for money, right? Because it's the same delivery process regardless of how many clients you potentially have. Now, with a hybrid model, if you haven't heard me speak about this before, it's kind of like a blend between one-on-one and group. So you still may have to have more time for money exchange, but that's only a piece of this offer in a leveraged offer versus just trading time for money that's not yours when you hire people. The other pro for creating a leveraged offer is it's easier to scale long term, right? It's repeatable. You can set up automations in the back end and you can really help people get, results a little bit more like they're systemized, or these results are pretty consistent because you're giving people similar, not necessarily the same, especially if there's, you have your time. Let's say you do group coaching and you jump on a Zoom, you might give people personalized support, but it's no additional time for you, whether that 1 hour has 3 people in it or 30 people in it. Yeah. You may want to slightly scale that in terms of number of hours, but at the end of the day, the time for money exchanges is very, very minimal in a leveraged offer. So you really get to scale this long term. It's repeatable and it's automated. And it also positions you as the authority or the leader, and you still get to be actually coaching. Yeah. So you don't necessarily have to hire anyone to create a leveraged offer. You are just creating more systems and processes, because we know in one-to-one, you are probably saying very similar things to the same people. And you can basically map out the journey and know what's going to happen because you've seen these people over and over again. Yep. The cons for creating a leveraged offer is that it requires more potential upfront effort, and you are going to have to go and create the map or the system to help people get from A to Z in your program to get the outcome. And it can also just be a little bit, I guess there can be a fair bit of resistance for coaches, because they're like, everything needs to be personalized, and how could I ever do this in a group setting? And therefore it can sort of stretch you mentally, going like, is this actually possible, right? Everyone's different, and how is this ever going to work? Okay. Especially if you don't have the one-to-one connection or support. And so the challenge with creating a leveraged offer is that you need to then create even stronger systems or behavior change strategies to ensure that your clients get results, even though you're not hand-holding them through a complete one-on-one process the whole time, like you typically do with a trading time for money or hiring people option. Yeah. You also need a really strong, clear process to help walk people through, or to help guide people to get the result. Because if you kind of just throw them in the deep end and go, figure it out, then it can lead to lower retention and higher churn of these people, because you don't have that ability as much to jump in and like grab people and literally walk them on step by step. You can create some pretty epic systems though that are going to support them to do this. And these can include things like automations. It can include things like pulling people back in if they lean out. And it can include referring back to specific pieces of like checkpoints in terms of their roadmap to see where they're at and help support them at those places. Okay. So back to the story that I was talking about, the student before. He thought hiring people was the only way. And we spoke about a leveraged offer, and he was familiar with it as a concept. However, he didn't believe that that was something that he could do, because he'd not really seen it before, and it seemed like the easier option to hire someone. Now, in his scenario, I sort of just did a bit of pressure testing with him and was like, do you want to be a manager? Do you want to focus on leadership and, hiring people and onboarding and going through all this? Because what you told me is you actually want location freedom. You want to be able to travel more. You want more space for you to be able to continue to coach because you love coaching, and also help serve more people. And so for him in this instance, it was actually the better option to choose the time leveraged offer and not necessarily hire people. Now, this doesn't mean that you're not going to hire VAs or potentially even support coaches or things like this, but you are still the primary product, or I guess the expert in a leveraged offer, which again has pros and cons to it. However, it depends on what you want, right? This episode is not to help you say like time leveraged is better and you have to choose that. It's just to make sure that you are pressure testing your own belief systems and which box that you're sitting in, and going, well, is this some sort of beliefs that have been handed to me, or is this the thing that I only think I'm capable of, or I only think I can achieve or do this option? Or is it time to step outside your box, create a new box and go, well, I thought that this was the only way I could do it, or this is what everyone else does who scales really well. So perhaps looking at it and going, now I've got a new box available, i.e. that could be the time leveraged offer. Or it could be you thought doing group programs was the only way and you're like, hey, wait, I can actually hire people, right? So this is not to say that either of these options are better or worse than the other. They both have pros and cons, like we've been through, and one of them just might feel lighter and easier and more aligned with what you want to do and your skills and your preferences and your strengths as a person and as a coach. Yeah. So I would love to know, after listening to this, if you think that hiring people or creating a leveraged offer is more the route you want to go. And for context, I've done both of these things. And for me, I've decided that creating a leveraged offer, at least first, that's what I did. I created the leveraged offer before I hired a coach and was able to scale that way. And then I literally tried both and then decided which one was right for me. So again, this is not to say either's right or wrong, or one will give you more profit or less profit. I do think when you hit a certain capacity, and this is probably going to increase in terms of dollars, considering we have AI now, but I think up until, gosh, like 500K, even probably $1 million, you can do either option pretty easily. And the time leverage offer in particular, because at some point to scale, you will need more bodies and more people to help support and service this, unless you want a very, very low touch, as in probably low ticket offer. You're creating something once and you're almost selling like products or ebooks or guides or things like that. But if you're in the coaching space, I would think that it's going to be much harder for you to like really scale. And I'm talking, into like multi-seven figures. It's going to be challenging for you to really scale a high ticket offer without having at least like a lean team to do that. So that's what I have now, is a lean team, and I lean into creating a leveraged offer. Now, there's so many different ways that you can create something like that. There's also so many different types of hires that you can have in terms of contractor or the employee, if it's casual or part-time or full-time. And I think a lot of people get a little bit turned off or a little bit nervous around either option because of what they think is involved up front. Because I've done both of these, I understand deeply, not just the pros and cons we've talked about today, but actually what it means and what your week will look like choosing one of these options. So if you do have any questions about this, I just want to open this to you to send me a DM on Instagram at Xenia Wood Official and just message me episode 128. And we can chat about what you're thinking of doing in terms of the method or the way in which you think is going to benefit you to scale best. So if you have any questions or you'd love to chat to me about it, my DMs are open. And until next time, move swiftly. Hey, coach, before you go, the reason I do this every single week and the reason we've been able to surpass 100 episodes is because of you. So thank you. We're on a mission towards never seeing another coach leave the industry because they didn't have the skills or the confidence to scale. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that before you forget. I read every single one of the comments and share as many as I can. So if you found this episode valuable, sharing it with a friend who might be able to benefit from hearing it would honestly mean so much to me. Until next time, and in whatever you do, move swiftly.